And we are back. And hopefully, this time, this podcast makes to YouTube. So this will probably be the first podcast coming back to YouTube. So my YouTube, there's not much in the Twitch chat right now. But yeah, so today, we are back finally on the grind for the Midnight Wolf podcast. And today we're gonna be kicking it off with space theory. That's our plan today. Last podcast, Storm just like, I don't know, his brain had a seizure and he just forgot to download the video.
Yeah.
Never got to YouTube. But
can I say? I got
hopefully
tired.
we've learned our lessons, right?
I've learned my lesson. It
and
won't
we're
happen
gonna-
again.
We're gonna
Sorry,
download the
sir.
podcast.
Yeah, no, this one I'll download literally the moment we finish.
Yeah, the moment after. There's no reason not to, you know.
I just had a brain fart, and I was like, "Oh, I'll get to it eventually," and then I slept for 2 weeks straight. So
Yeah, basically. Anyway, we're back, and today we're talking about space theory, and I've actually been seeing a few YouTube videos on it recently. It's so weird. My YouTube feed and my like Netflix feed has been all like informational. Like, there's politics on Netflix for me, and if you like look at my YouTube feed, it's like math videos and math lectures on like by like Eddie Wu and like some old guys about like space relativity and shit, and it's like very weird. Anyway, I kind of want to kick this off with, I might actually switch this stream to a drawing platform, and I kind of want to get a visual representation. And if you've not seen this experiment, you're probably gonna have to look it up. But it's a visual representation of the bend and folds of space time. That's how we're starting. I'm just opening up the art program right now.
So kind of like,
I might pull out my mouse pad, or sorry, my drawing tablet real quick.
are you talking about how with certain gravitational pulls, like black holes, how they'll like form space and time?
Yeah, gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, because maybe not everyone's seen it, so I'm gonna try my best to do it on a 2D, space, but we'll see how it goes. Switching it over.
Make sure that if you
right
put
now.
your view on it, make sure that the chat box is at the top.
Is it not at the top right now?
It might not be.
Oh, that sucks. Anyway, I can't look at chat anymore. It's just not on my screen. So here's my pencil. Okay. Anyway, so every time they start this experiment, and there's been a bunch of different YouTube videos about it. You might have seen it in real life at maybe stores. Like, think of a coin slot machine, or the ones that where you stick the quarter into the penny and it goes around and around and around and around, right? So they set up this table and they have this fabric on it, right? So here's the legs, here's the fabric, and it's kind of like a table, like kind of like tablecloth where it like looms over it, right? And so that's the tablecloth, and they have all of the bands like holding on to the kind of like a trampoline, right? They're holding on to the fabric, and then there's a little seam in the middle that actually holds all the fabric together. But pretend this is just a flat fabric table, and there's nothing holding it up. It's just these bands, right, stretching it across the table. So what they would do is they would put a ball into the middle of this table, right, or a weight, a magnet maybe, in the middle of this table, and it would start like elastic, just because of the band, it would start seaming down. Now this is like kind of tablecloth material, or maybe like same material of like your shorts, right? And it would start like kind of bending down. And what they would do is they'd grab a bunch of these little I'm gonna like, hold on, I'm gonna try to double. It's kind of weird if you hold, it doesn't. Oh, no, I got it. Okay, I'm gonna create a new layer. So this new layer is, say, another planet, right? Maybe this may be the sun. This may be the Earth, right? And this may be the moon or some other planet revolving around the sun, right? And what they would do is they'd like kind of roll this planet on here, and so this planet would start. Okay, well, I guess it wouldn't. It would start rolling around it until eventually it hits the middle. And what this is supposed to represent, and this would be a planet orbiting any large object with mass in space, kind of like revolving around it. It's basically representing it's bending like in a different dimension space-time so that all of the objects around it would orbit it. And they'd also show they'd have a bunch of other different balls, and if you roll them in different directions, the eventually some of the balls get knocked out and the rest of them all orbit in the same direction. That's why all of our planets orbit in the same direction. Is because if there is two different planets orbiting in different directions, eventually one runs into something, knocks out, and everything's running in the same direction, right? Another point of this is actually if you throw two little balls on this, and this is revolving, what would happen is the other ball would stick to the first ball because it's also bending the fabric down, and it would revolve around that ball. It's very interesting to watch. But another thing, I wanted to talk about antimatter as well. So at the end of the lecture, he also showed he grabbed like a pipe, a PVC pipe, I think it's what it's called, right? And what he did is he stuck it under the fabric. So he would, I'm just going to draw a line here. Just pretend this is like, you can see this through the fabric. He'd stick it up and then all the fabric would start bending down around it, right? And so now all of a sudden, instead of stuff orbiting around this like it would around a normal object, it starts falling away from it, right? So grab this ball, right? So normally it'd be orbiting around this, but when you stick this little thing up into the fabric, it starts falling away from it. It starts getting away from it, right? And that was kind of the representation of antimatter or like anti-gravity or whatever, where things start forcibly going away from it. It was just kind of a neat thought experiment, and I'm sure you've heard it, seen it before. But that was kind of my idea of space theory when I first walked into this. I hope that wasn't too boring.
I'm just a little lost now.
How
Like,
so?
I get what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and that each body of mass in our in the universe or in space has a gravitational pull,
Yeah.
and depending on how strong that force is, that it'll bend gravity, right?
Yeah. In
But
space time.
antimatter or anti-gravity
Mhm.
does the exact opposite. Instead of pulling, it pulls, or instead of pulling, it pushes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just all I was trying to grasp.
That's all it is, and it for me what that tells it kind of lays out that fabric on the table, right? It's a physical thing, and when you put a large amount of mass down, it starts to bend that fabric, and that's why it's called the fabric of space time, right? Because of that visual representation. That's how they figured it out. That's how let me rephrase that. That's how the theory was born, right? And it kind of makes me think, well, what we're doing is we're sticking a 3D object, like a 3D material of weight, sticking it on a 2D plane, right? And all of a sudden everything starts bending. Would that not be the same if a 4-dimensional object was stuck on a 3-dimensional, what's it called? It's not a plane. It's just a 3-dimensional space, right? Would that not bend the fabric, right?
Like, what do you mean? So, like, you had a sphere or a
Mhm.
cube? Would this fourth dimensional object
Start
bend?
bending it like it would like gravity. You know, the same thing if you work down dimensions, right? Say you have a line that's linear, you have a string, right? And you have something that's in the same dimension, right? But it's a second dimension. And you put that weight on top of the string, that string starts bending down.
Yeah.
If you have a 2D plane, put a 3D object on the top, the 2D plane starts like curving down in the middle, right? And same thing if you were to stick a 4D object on top of a 3D space, you know? It's just
Well,
kind of interesting to think about. I don't know.
4-dimensional objects have no defined dimensions, right?
That we know of.
Yeah.
That we can
So,
observe, really.
because wouldn't a fourth dimensional shape be or like theoretically a black hole? Because if it has no inner or outer dimensions and it's an infinite loop towards those dimensions, then the gravity it wouldn't be affected by normal gravity because
Yeah.
it would collapse on itself. A fourth dimensional object would just collapse if it
Okay.
was bound by our laws of physics.
Back to the drawing board. And this one I can actually probably draw a little bit better. And this was like a 45-minute video that we talked about that I saw in math class in like 6th grade. So here's a new layer. And pretend there is a two-dimensional space. Here's our paper, right? And here's our little guy right here. Or he's like, here's his house. He's in a two-dimensional house in a two-dimensional world, right? Here's his like opening, his door, right? And he has his space outside of it, right? Now pretend all he could see, all this, what we'll call him Johnny, two-dimensional Johnny. I don't know why, that's the first name that came to mind, right? All he can see is on the X and Y axis, you have this axis and this axis, right? That's all that is in his line of sight and all you can really see in the drawing. Now, if you were to, say, grab a sphere, and it's really, I don't know, like specifically spheres have this effect. If I were to grab, I'm gonna try to make a representation of a sphere here on a 2D space. Hold on, just like, oh yeah, but like in here, it's like it's like darker here though.
You know, you could have done like an arced, or you could have done 2 arced lines in the middle.
2 arced lines? What do you mean?
So kind of like have a what would it be called? Yeah, like so take one arc line,
Like that?
one going through the middle, and then one going from the top to the bottom.
Like this? All right. Well, here's our sphere.
Yeah, like that.
If I were to grab the sphere, so say this is left and right, and this is back and forth, right? But just pretend the back and forth line were to go through Johnny's world, right? If I were to grab this sphere and I stick the tip of the sphere, the sphere through the 2D space, all he would see is this little tiny circle, right, in his space. If I start to drag the sphere closer into the world, right, all of a sudden that circle starts to get bigger, right? And now I you start to get to the middle point, and he sees this huge circle. As it passes by, it gets smaller, and the circle gets smaller and smaller. You get the point, right? Same would go for a 4-dimensional space, right? If you were to stick a 4-dimensional object in a 3D space, all you would see is this sphere. Instead of a circle, you see a sphere because you're in a 3-dimensional space, right? And when it first appears, it appears relatively small, right? And now as it just ignore this, as it like encroaches into your world, the sphere gets bigger and bigger. I'll actually use shift, bigger, and then it'll reach its like maximum point, and then the sphere will get smaller. And then
Google
it's out.
Google 4D cube. Google 4D cube. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I was watching Grade A. 4D cube. A tesseract.
And then maybe yeah, tesseract. And then look up like GIFs.
GIFs. So I'll try to find. Thanks. These really help. Why are none of these GIFs?
Well, yeah, wait, why are none of them GIFs?
Normally you like find a bunch of GIFs just like kind of floating around. Hey, there we go. Okay. So what's your point?
Okay, like that's your like that's what you were trying to represent with the sphere.
Of a
I don't know.
cube.
I feel like an animated version of it would make a lot more sense to look at.
What a tesseract is basically is, remember the first time you ever figured out how to draw a cube, and you thought you were so smart because you connected 2 squares together? That's essentially what a cube is, right? Is when you draw, here's a square, right? And then this is how I was taught to draw a cube, right? And this is a transparent cube, at least. You draw a square, and then you draw another square behind it, like in the top left corner, or right, or bottom. It doesn't matter where, right? And then you connect all of the corners together, right? And by the way, this is also a little mind trick of like which is the front and which is the back. Is this the front? Is this the back? You can like kind of shift in between with your eyes, right? You can make it stick out this way, so like you see the cube, like that's its front. It's sticking out this way, so the arrow's like inside the cube. Or this can be its front. See how it just shifts? It's a weird perspective thing. But anyway, all I really did was connect two squares together. And that's kind of the same thing in the model of a tesseract, right? And you can only really view these because a lot of these simulations are on 2D spaces because that's most of the technology you have available. But seeing that, I think sealing it in VR would be kind of better. So here's two cubes, right? And now all I would have to do is connect the corners. There you go. There's your tesseract, right? And it just looks like two cubes inside of each other with connected corners because we don't have four-dimensional objects in our. We can't really visualize that in our brain. Our brain's not equipped to handle that. So that's why,
because it's outside of our
if you just
visible dimension.
if you just look at the image, it starts off with just two cubes with the corners connected to each other. But I guess as it moves through the world, and I guess since these are transparent, the representation I was showing earlier would be like a solid sphere, right? But this would be transparent. So this is what you would see if a cube were to like rotate through your 3D environment, right? And I guess cubes are different. I wonder what a 4D circle looks like.
Do we have any like?
It just looks like circles with lines everywhere. This isn't 4D circle. What if? Well, yeah. No, it doesn't make sense because if I say 4D circle rotating, it's just gonna look like a circle.
Yeah.
Because going, it'll look like what I just described earlier, a circle getting bigger and smaller, right? But that would be a circle moving through your world. If a circle,
Yeah.
if a 3D circle were to just rotate in a 2D space, it'll just look like a circle. Like, nothing's going to change about it. Maybe it'll start oscillating a little, but nothing's going to change. Same thing if a 4D sphere were to, like, be in our world. It's just going to look like a circle.
Oh, wait, that reminds me. I saw this video of this guy who had made a 4D plane.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you were to walk through a 4D plane, or like, let's say you were to traverse each middle ground as you're going into a new square. We're going to call these each squares. And if you walk into a new room of a new square and you went into a circle, you would not end up where you originally started because there's an infinite amount of sides to it because it's infinitely oscillating, right? The dimensions are infinite. So you wouldn't be able to come back to where you began or where you started from.
Oh, that's weird.
I saw a video on it on YouTube, but I wonder if I can find it and then send it to you.
Yeah.
Walking.
You guys should search up 4D Minecraft. It's kind
of
of 4D
Minecraft.
Yeah. So basically, you start off in a 3D space, and you find these tools at spawn, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to turn through this 3D space, right? As if and back to the drawing board. So I don't know how I'm exactly gonna do this. So here we're gonna grab Johnny again. Here's Johnny. That's a big head. Here's Johnny, and here is the front of his yard, right? So he's looking this way, right? That's kind of his viewpoint of his 2D space. It's basically just one line. It's a plane of an infinite amount of degrees in a 3D space, right? It's just one plane. Now, if you were to grab Johnny and you were to, I think it's this tool. No, is it? I'm trying to think. That's the crop tool. No. It's one of these buttons that do something funny. I think it's control. Yeah. So if you were to turn him, right, on the Z, I guess the Z axis is what it would be, he'd start to see different spaces of the 3D world, right? And essentially that's what it's just snippets of parts of the 3D world, right? And it's same thing goes for 4D Minecraft. Is you're given this tool, and every time you click a button, you just turn slightly, and you see basically it looks like an entirely different space, right? And some people have created 4D houses in that game, and if the more you turn, right, the house starts to warp and it starts to have different rooms, right? But it's kind of hard to make that house completely like protected because there's also 4D enemies in that game. there's like a spider with like 182 legs. But you can
Ooh.
only see like 4 of them at a time. And each time you turn, you see different sides of his legs. It's really wacky to look at. You should definitely look that up and support the creator. He seems pretty passionate about the project. I haven't. Oh, was I not showing it?
No, I don't think so. I
Oh
was
my
like, huh?
gosh, you didn't say anything? Okay.
I was just
Um.
gonna be like, okay.
Anyway, here's what I was doing. I was grabbing him. I grabbed this tool right here, and I hit control, and I was turning him like this.
Oh,
So now he's looking at different sections, of he's just looking at different snippets of the 3D space through his 2D view, right? Same thing goes for
God,
4D Minecraft.
I keep forgetting how like I did a lot of research on this. I think we both did at one point
Yeah,
together.
well, we're both in. I don't know. Well, I don't. We probably did on a podcast. Yeah.
But at the same time, like I don't know why I'm blanking on like a lot of this information that I know.
I've just found this stuff on YouTube. It's pretty interesting, and I
Yeah.
was also showing it through my math classes because I guess mathematicians are very.
If you guys ever want to go through and educate us, if you have any more knowledge on it or anything, or any more cool facts about it, send it in our Discord.
Yeah.
I plugged it up before, but I'm gonna plug it again. Yeah, go into our Discord, send us some links to maybe some articles or maybe some actual posts that have a lot of or better knowledge and better explanations than we can explain it, and maybe we'll be able to talk about it further. But we've both done a lot of research on these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it's just so fascinating. It's really nice to think of somewhere
What's that?
or a realm and a dimension that we literally are never going to be able to see, just because it's in a different realm. It's in a different dimensional plane, and it's like we don't even know if what we've come up with, in the sense of like a tesseract,
Mm-hmm.
is that truly what a fourth dimensional object would look like.
It's all theory.
It's all theory.
Gravity's a theory.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Like gravity. Well, okay. So gravity is a theory, and the bending of space time is kind of like a representation. They're different theories, but they go hand in hand.
Yep.
You know. Because then there's like magnetism and stuff like that. Okay. So antiparticles. That was part of what I was going to talk about, and Storm has like he's not heard of antiparticles before. I might just
I
look
think
it
I've
up.
heard of them. I've just completely forgotten.
I'm just gonna look it up instead of drawing it because I don't entirely remember. I might just have a reference on the side. Hold on. So I watched this guy named Minute Physics. He has a bunch of different videos. What he did is he had a 3D simulation of sticking two 2D portals inside of each other, right? It's a really interesting video. I'm not going to explain it because it's really, really complicated. But he did a video on antiparticles as well. And, yeah, okay, so I think what I'm going to start off with is I don't know how anti-neutrons work, but there's so many different parts of like antiparticles with all of these. Oh, so this gets into quantum mechanics is what this is.
Yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah, so basically, if you've ever taken chemistry or have used the internet before, you've heard of an electron, right? And we know here's the symbol for electrons, very creative. Electrons always have this negative symbol in front of it because electrons are negative, right? And what would be the opposite of an electron? Storm, this is your time to raise your hand. Like,
my hands up, my hands up.
Yeah, Storm.
It'd be a positive electron.
It would be a positron, is what it's called. Very creative name. Or, anti-electron, whatever. Anyway, it's just positron is funny to say. So I don't for every single particle you can ever think of, there's an opposite of it. And that's what makes up antimatter is antiparticles. And what they do is they do that little pull thing that like that bends space time and makes the things fall away from it. That's antiparticles, I think. I'm not sure, but I think that's what that is. And there's a lot of these in the universe, and same thing with protons, right? But instead of protons always having a positive symbol, right? Because that's what this would look like. I think that's what a anti-proton looks like. I don't know why they all have their weird little symbols on it. I think what makes it anti-neutron is the way it spins. I'm not sure how that works. Let me look up what an anti-atom is. And I don't think these are like labels. There's a lot of diagrams that I'm looking at that talk about quarks, and I don't know how that fits into it.
Oh my god, quarks are so cool.
I don't really know anything about quarks, but let me look up an anti-atom and see if that's a thing. Anti-atom, atom. I like these visual representations. It's nice. I found something called an anti-atom battlefield because I don't know how to spell. Atom.
See,
here we go.
What? Okay, here's what I needed to tie it back to. What we're discussing right now is string theory.
Anti-quarks.
Because, yeah, the moment you start getting into quarks and leptons and bosons, I can't remember what they're called, but I'm pretty sure it's quarks, leptons, and bosons, I think. I think I'm getting the last one wrong. But that's all connected through string theory and basically what makes up the memory of the universe.
Yeah.
And how, like, let's say you take, because, you know, a certain atom needs to be made up of quarks, and the universe and those quarks will remember the pattern as kind of like, in computer terms, RAM, your memory.
Okay, I was. Oh yeah. So this is the symbol for an antiproton, but I'm also seeing representations. This is weird. I keep seeing this U symbol, and if you know anything about quantum mechanics, I guess this will mean something to you, but this literally means nothing to me. And for some reason, that's also an antiproton, I think. I don't know why, it just is. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, we could sum up this whole podcast into, you know, it's something, all right.
I just Better Call Saul played for. No, okay. Don't.
What?
Some random clicks for like my tabs were just playing for like a second. I hope it doesn't like mean anything. I hope I don't get like copyrighted. It was literally not even a second.
DMCA'd.
Well, we'll see. We might have to cut it out like a year in the future if we ever get monetization.
Yippee!
Anyway, continue.
But yeah, no, in string theory, what we are discussing is how we bound ourselves through one or three dimensions, first, second, and third, and that's how we're able to draw on our computers using 2 dimensions and 1 dimensions through a singular line. And then we've now got software where we can program and render our 3-dimensional planes with your video games, which are still being viewed through a 2D object. But we are viewing 4 dimensions on a 2D plane. So it's really difficult to view that. So I'm wondering...
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Like how... like, again, well, I mean, there's no how. It's never going to happen. How cool would it be if we could visualize viewing in a 3rd dimension? Like, in person, I mean. And not through VR, because you're still looking through a 2D plane. You've just got more axes this time.
Oh, okay. So the representation I was showing earlier, it was showing the anti-quarks that make up the proton. Or yeah. So I guess the opposite of that would just be the same thing, but without the line above it. It's I guess we know jack shit about quantum mechanics, I'm gonna be honest. Not just specifically me and Storm, I'm saying like science in general. Because it's kind of hard to study. you know?
It's something that we, unfortunately, as a species, don't have the. Sorry, I'm getting like this weird hiccup thing, but
Yeah.
we just do not have the machinery to.
Hell, we don't have humans were not equipped for the capacity to be able to understand like the bending of fabric in space. That was not it's not like really in our roster of um what's it called? Imagery in our head, you know? We're just not equipped to really comprehend it. So that's why it hurts our brains.
Now we are trying to program quantum computers.
What does that mean?
Well, we're trying to take our technology and render quantum mechanics. You know, we're trying to advance our technology to help us in the fields that we struggle with, right?
Yeah.
Because moral contemplation is something that we are not apparently good at. So we are trying to come up with computers and expand our technology to be able to process what it would take to render, certain quantum mechanics and quantum theories that we just can't through our own brains.
Yeah. That's really interesting to think about. Like we've understood that like we like physically can't understand it, so maybe a computer would.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. Um okay, so random thing. I was watching Daily Dose of the Internet and apparently there was this experience. No, it was not Daily Dose of the Internet. It was some random video that got into my feed. And it was this video of they had taken some extra neurons from an infant. Sounds terrible. But then or extra it was just body cells, somatic cells, right? And they had changed their genetics into stem cells, right? If you don't know what stem cells are, it is the first cell in your body that stems off to be other cells, right? All your cells have the same DNA, and it just kind of tells what the other cells should do and how they work, right? But you start off with a gamete and a whatever, and then it creates a stem cell, and then boo, baby. Um, but they changed those somatic cells, those body cells, into stem cells, and they changed those stem cells into neurons, right? So here's these like freshly new neurons, right? Completely like disregarding any sort of senses, right? And what they did is they put it in this little tray and they hooked up like 20 like neurons, and it's actually like really it was kind of disgusting to look at. And they hooked up these neurons to circuit boards, right? And those circuit boards was hooked up to a game of Pong. And they had taught this group of like 20 or so, or maybe 50, 100 neurons to play Pong. And what they would do is, in order to teach AI, it's the same thing for the neurons, right? Is disciplinary, right? But what they didn't want to do is they didn't want to necessarily give it pain because they weren't entirely sure what the ethics of 20 neurons is. So what they realized is that we know that human brains like organization, right? Human
Hmm.
brains stress out and freak out when on inconsistencies and when things like what's it called? Organization. What am I thinking of? What's the word for it?
Uh,
Scheduling patterns.
Processing
Patterns.
pattern.
We like human brains like patterns. Um which is why if you don't sleep at certain time at night like consistently, you get really depressed. So what they did is every time they failed, they gave them the controls of the game of Pong, right? They have no idea where the ball is. They have no idea like what any of it means. And if they let the ball pass through, right, it would send random stimuli all over the neurons, right? Like in inconsistent patterns, and none of it makes sense, and it would confuse it, right? But when it actually successfully hit the ball, it sent 10 waves of like 10 sequences of stimuli, right? Which was kind of their reward, right? It gave it a pattern, right? So basically what they were striving for is patterns and making sense of it, right?
It's like kind of gross to think about.
Yeah.
Like,
Um
is that living?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna question next, right? So first off, I'd like to say it did take a lot of time, right? But it only took 15 trials to get a 5-minute game of Pong going, right? Which is incredible because it took an AI 15,000 trials to get to that point, right? You know how crazy that is? And that's what I was talking about last podcast with me and you of I feel like we're gonna reach a point pretty soon of biomechanical artificial intelligence, right? Where it's like half human, half AI, right? And they get their stimuli from electrons from like circuit boards and shit, you know? And so the next question after that was about ethics and morals, right? Is this
Oh my
ethically right?
god, I'm so upset that last podcast I didn't download. It was such a good one.
Yeah.
Like it was a really good podcast.
We had like 10 viewers of this one. We have one right now, and that's probably you, which is really sad to think about.
Probably, but damn, for the YouTube viewers, I guess at the moment, like last podcast we talked about moral ethics and whatnot, which we might just do another ethics podcast at some point because that was a fun topic. It was a lot of fun
what was our last topic? I didn't remember.
Like of
like what was
last
the title?
podcast?
What was the title of the last podcast?
Ethics.
Ethics. It was.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it was we
it
talked
was.
about ethics and moral compass on, especially something like that, a topic where we might advance tech. Like we are going to be capped. We are definitely going to cap ourselves technologically, where we're just going to be stuck at a point where computer processing just can't go any further. We are going to want to develop technology that can think past us. But the only way to do that is to test on us and with machines. And it's going to be completely unethical to do so. So unless we decide to break our moral compass that our own brains have put into position, right? Unless we break those, we are not going to be able to fully advance. So when are we going to keep breaking our bounds and laws to reach this point?
Yeah.
We've done it before, you know.
The prison experiment. What's it called?
Yeah.
Einstein prison experiment. Talked about all the time. It was, and same thing with shit. What's his name? I think its name is what's Sherlock Holmes' partner? Shit. John.
Shit, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, same name. John Watson.
Yeah.
Where I think it was him where he went basically it was talking about observational learning, cognitive learning, right? Where conditioning, sorry, observational conditioning, where if you no, it wasn't that. I don't know. It was something along those lines. But what they would do is there was two different experiments I'm thinking of by two completely different people. But the first one, I think this was Watson, is he put a very young child in a room with a white rat, right? And the child, never been predisposed to rats, think it's cute. They play with it, they pet it. The rat is his new friend, right? And eventually, what would happen if they let it play with it for a few days, right? And the reason they needed a child, by the way, is because usually a lot of humans have stigmas about rats through their experiences, so they needed someone who's never experienced seeing a rat before, right? So an infant. And next he every time the child had gotten near the rat or touched it, they would play really loud noises. Like they would start banging on pots and pans and shit like that, and they'd scare the child, and the child would start crying, right? So every single time they stepped foot near the rat, these loud noises would suddenly start playing and scare them, and they'd cry. So then they were too afraid to touch the rat, right? Because they were afraid if I get near the rat, then I'm gonna get hurt, right? Like my ears are gonna get hurt, something bad's gonna happen, right? So every time the rat was brought into the room, the child started crying now. Which it was so sad to read about. But then they started bringing stuff in like a white cat. They started crying because the fur was similar to the rat, even though it wasn't the rat, completely unrelated, right? So they learned a bunch of psychology about that, and there's a bunch of technical terms that I completely forgot. I
Yeah,
could pull up
pattern
my notes right
recognition.
now. But and then there was another, and I think it was this psychologist named Bobo, and he had this thing called the Bobo doll, and he'd be in a room, right? There's a room with a bunch of kids, and every time the adult would walk in their room frustrated, right? They'd set the doll on the floor and they just beat the ever living like crap out of it, right? And they start beating the doll up, and then they'd walk out of the room, right? And then so now all of a sudden, since they saw this big adult, because he knows what he's doing, right? They saw him go up and vent his frustration out on the doll. Every time the kids got mad, they started punching the doll, right? And it was just, and that was, kind of the first spark of observational learning. Now, they had realized now, was it unethical to purposely make a child cry to learn about psychology and behavioralism? Yeah. But did we learn a lot? Yeah, and we're very thankful for that. And it's just kind of like a weird roundabout say of, yeah, we're thankful that this man made the child cry, which is kind of screwed up. But it boosted us really far in the learning process of behavioralism, you know? And development and learning. Um, but it's just, kind of like that. Anyway, back to the neurons. So the question was brought up of ethics, right? And the first thing that they had thought of is, well, is this considered conscious, right? And there's two definitions of conscious. I don't remember what the second one was, but if you search up, I think on Webster, it shows conscious as being a any sort of response to stimuli, and an output as in like respond. Yeah, so the ability to take in stimuli and either think about it or send out an output, right? And that is, technically what the neurons did. Now, are those, is that group of 20 neurons considered conscious? Are they thinking, right? How do you know? So is it ethical to do that? If you make them experience pain, is that a bad thing to do? Right? It's just 20 neurons just chilling.
But could those 20 neurons like learn to adapt?
Yeah, it did to the Pong game.
Yeah, but now can these neurons get like frustrated? Could like if they mess up multiple times, would they start to get angry?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the type of neurons,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like does each neuron have like a quote unquote personality?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing though. We have cells in our body right now, and like hell, the bacteria in our intestines that gets rid of all the bad stuff, right? They avoid stuff in order to stay alive to get rid of the bad stuff, right? They have to go in, they have to respond to stimuli and take action, right? That was by the definition of conscious. So basically, every single cell in your body that you can think of has a mind of its own. But they're also
Well,
working together to create your consciousness, isn't that right? Like, I don't know.
yeah.
That's just
Well,
weird to think about.
I mean we mentioned this actually last podcast as well. With the way consciousness is defined is through when you are able to understand and like you said send an output
Yeah.
due to understanding that you're conscious, right?
Or just think about it even.
Yeah, if you're able to think freely in the sense of have a choice, you have a choice in whether you want to do this or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for example, a cell is just in our own terms like eat, sleep, die,
Yeah.
procreate, anything like that.
Do
Your
tasks.
cells, yeah, your cells follow a task. They are just to do, they're supposed to repeat a cycle,
Mm-hmm.
just like how plants are. Plants are
Yeah.
supposed to repeat the cycle of carbon dioxide, turn it into oxygen. Repeat. Grow, repeat, eat, repeat, sleep, repeat, procreate, repeat,
Mm-hmm.
and then die.
Yeah.
But whenever humans are born, we are offered the same thing: breathe, sleep, eat, and that's it for now.
Yeah.
But then, as our neurons start firing more and more, we get pattern recognition, and we start to develop a sense of sight, because it's just we get a sense of memory.
Yeah.
because we keep taking these patterns and we're like, oh, I've seen this before. Oh, I've seen that before. And that's when I'm starting to wonder, like, you know, the reason we can't remember things until we're like 3 or so years old is because we haven't had enough patterns to make look familiar, right? Our memory isn't there because there's no memory.
Well, and it's also just not fully developed yet, or it's not.
Yeah.
Your memory isn't really developed.
Yeah, and there's no memory yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the reasons we're able to see is because we're like, oh, remember to see that. Remember to look at that and memorize it for
You
later.
mean in our heads?
Yeah, in our heads.
Yeah, imagine stuff.
Yeah.
Well, not everyone's able to do that. Not everyone has imagery in their head.
Some people don't even have sense of perception of like distance,
Mm-hmm.
which is so odd to me.
Some people just don't have internal monologues either.
Which again is very odd to me.
Well,
But-
not necessarily to me, because you can just go throughout your day. Say you're walking on the street and you completely space out. Same thing. You know, you're
Yeah,
walking
kind of like
and you're
a-
not thinking about it.
An autopilot kind of thing.
But it's like that, but like all the time.
It'd be weird.
Yeah.
But to have that all the time, you know?
Yeah.
What was I gonna say about that? I was gonna say something. Oh, but you know, once you develop and you start to memorize things, that's when you get a choice. Once you remember, you can remember things.
Mm-hmm.
You get a choice because you are asked a choice, or you're asked a question.
Okay. So where are you going?
And
with
usually
this?
it's like, okay, which color?
Your wording is very weird with this stuff.
It is. It's because I'm very tired.
Okay, so now what you're saying is now that we've developed language comprehension, we're able to be able to ask questions and respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, which one do you want? Do you want this toy
Mm-hmm.
or this toy?
Decision making.
Yeah, decision making. That's what we gain once we age.
No, cells do that.
Do they?
Yeah, like, do I want to kill this first or this first? You know, should I eat this? Or like, oh shit, there's a threat. Do I run away? I don't know. Like, they decide to run away. You know. They don't just like, I don't know.
I would say that's more of a flow chart in the sense that it's got a certain thing. It's got certain things that it can do, but once that certain thing is done, it just repeats.
Yeah.
It keeps searching to find that.
No recollection of what just happened.
Yeah, it doesn't remember what happened. It just sees what's currently in front of it.
See threat.
And
go eat. Shit.
See threat. See threat. Is this threat this? No. Okay, continue process.
Yeah.
Oh, see threat.
Like an AI.
Yeah, like an AI. It just flows through a chart until it is done. So
Until it is done.
until it is done, and then you die.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
What?
I got scared.
What?
Sorry, my friend called me.
Oh. Did I talk about? Oh yeah. No, I talked about last podcast where you woke me up from sleep paralysis.
Oh yeah.
I started talking about all of my dreams, and that was like the bulk of the podcast. Because like there's nothing else interesting to talk about. Anyway, where are you heading with this?
Where am I heading with this? What did I just say? I got really
Aren't
startled
we
and
supposed to be
completely
talking about
lost.
space theory?
That's right. We are supposed to be talking about
Let's
space
go
theory.
back to that. What is the main thing? Why? Oh, time dilation. That was the initial reason for this podcast.
Oh my god, I love time dilation.
You start off.
Okay, so quickest form that I'm gonna go through time dilation with is, let's say you have a giant black hole.
Mm-hmm.
You have a ship. It's a really, really long ship.
Oh, so I was telling this story to my dad. Yeah,
If one end of the ship is closest to the black hole, on the completely other side of the ship, it's going to be going 10 times, maybe even 100 times or more slower. You can actually have cameras from one end to another, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But let's say you're at the end of the ship and you're seeing how slow they're moving on the end closest to the black hole. That end, if it sees a camera and is looking to the front of the ship, will be going so fast.
Yeah.
It won't even be comprehensible for how fast it's moving.
Now, I don't think that's what happens.
Really? What do you think happens?
I think I'm trying to think of this. I'm trying to think of like a real world example. Okay, a real world example. The first thought of time dilation that I had is I was watching conspiracies, people proving flat earthers wrong. And one of them brings up time dilation because he thought it was a smart word, and just completely rambles off about something that is like entirely not important. But it's kind of interesting to think about that, we have GPS, right? And as you know, when you start to move fast, the faster you move, speed actually affects how fast time moves as well.
Yeah.
Not by any measurable amount, but it does. The faster you go, I think the faster time goes, or the slower time goes. I don't remember. But you see it in sci-fi movies, right? And this is actually a real world thing that GPSs actually have to account for. If you didn't know about that, it's not just they're on a timer or whatever. But in order to actually they had to code things to get around the problem of time dilation, right? Because they don't know that they just know that time's moving at a certain pace, but they have to compare it to the rest of the world. It's just kind of weird to think about. I don't know how they compensate for time dilation, but it's just I didn't know that GPSs had to think about that. It's an everyday thing that happens.
Huh.
So, but it's kind of like what I'm thinking about is if you have a camera that shows a place where time moves 10 times faster, right? Which I have no idea what that would be like because I'm not equipped to comprehend what that would be like, right? But if you had a camera kind of viewing that area, does it show the time moving the same time that you are moving right now? But it's just kind of it's kind of like a slowed down version of it, or does the camera look like everything's going fast, right? And if you walk to that other side of that ship, is everyone just dead? You step foot out the door and you're moving. Say I don't know, everyone's old, right? And you just walk back, and all of a sudden everyone has aged a year, and it's only been 1/10 of the year. That's crazy to think about. I don't know.
One of the things that I had gotten was, or the example that I got was from Doctor Who. They did an entire episode on just a ship being really close to a black hole in the dilation from one end of the ship to another. They actually had a little mini short about time dilation that the Doctor explains. So cool. I definitely suggest that you watch it if you can. Just look up time dilation Doctor Who, and it'll go into some. I gotta pause this music real fast.
Nice.
But it'll go through and talk about how just because of the way black holes are spinning, it's changing the way the gravitational pull works there, right? And because the black hole is spinning so fast, it's warping gravity around it, which is also warping the fabric of time, right?
Is it not the mass that does that?
No, it's dependent on the mass.
Yeah.
But the more it spins in on itself, it's creating a gravity well, pulling in light and everything that it can, which is then not only warping the gravity, but it's warping the velocity in which it spins, and that's how time is measured, through velocity, right?
Yeah.
So, or it's not. I'm wording this really poorly, as I usually
You've
do.
been doing this, yeah.
I've been doing it a lot, but if you take how fast, or let's say you're taking this gravity, you're spinning it, that's going to speed up this gravity. Your velocity increases, which means that your time is going to follow suit with that as well. So, if this ship, or what we're going to use as our example, is closer in this velocity as it spins, so is that time. But the further away you're getting, the less gravity that's getting pulled in by this black hole. So time is starting to return to the quote unquote normal compared to which end of the ship is you're in.
Yeah,
Make any sense?
I totally understood everything of that.
Did you not?
It was just worded like very very poorly.
Short and sweet.
Okay.
The more it spins, the more time speeds up because of how fast it's going. The further away you get, the slower that time is.
Does the black hole also look like it's spinning slower?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I was talking about this, I think either to Yuvi or my dad in the car, and hold on, let me look up the definition of acceleration. So okay, so acceleration is the wait no what is velocity velocity definition. I can't spell right now. Velocity is the rate of speed of an action, right? And a step up from that, a step up from velocity is acceleration, which acceleration is the rate and change of velocity with respect of time, right? And a step up from that is g's, right? G's is the rate of change of velocity, right? A step up
Wait, would
from
it be
that,
the rate of change of acceleration?
oh, sorry, acceleration. You're right. My bad. G's is the rate of change of acceleration. And then rate of change of G's, G-force. What is that? Thanks, internet. You didn't help at all. G-force definition. I want to see if Google gets this right. I was watching a video on Tom Scott as he was describing this. No. What does G stand for? Like how many G's you're pulling? What does G stand for?
Isn't G's gravity?
What does G stand for in physics? Thanks. G means mate in slang in English. However, you use this for your closest friend.
Gravitational constant. Physical constant denoted by G and using in calculating the gravitational attraction between two objects.
Okay, so
or gravitational acceleration.
what is torque that? Yeah, so gravitational acceleration. It's basically the rate of change of acceleration. Stop. And then I think another step up from that, I think it was called torque. I'm not sure if that's the right one, but it was like the rate of change of G's, and then on top of that, I think was like jerk, which is the rate of change of like torque or something. I don't think it was torque; it was something else. But it just keeps going step up. It's one of those things that where I can't visualize it in my brain. You know,
I think that's right because torque is defined as shit. Oh god, this is so confusing. I only know torque from cars, but
yeah. Well, I know
torque
torque
is
from airplanes, which is where all this terminology usually resides.
Yeah, because torque is how much force is being applied to make that action happen. So it's like, let's say you have a heavy duty truck, right?
Yeah.
It's probably going to have more torque because it needs to be able to put that much force into the ground to move.
I don't know if it was torque, but it's very interesting, and it's just one of those things where you can't visualize. Rate of change of speed, makes sense to me, right? Velocity and like the like acceleration, you can visualize in your head because we use cars daily, right? G's, the rate of change of acceleration, kind of makes sense, but the rate of change of G's, like, how does that work? You know?
Yeah.
It's just
Some cars actually have a G-force meter on them. It's
wow.
usually for a lot more hypercars, but it's because if you have instant acceleration,
Yeah,
for like electric vehicles and whatnot, you're experiencing almost instant G's because you've got instant torque.
yeah,
Quickest way I can explain it is with your normal engines, as you spin, right? Because your engine makes a drivetrain spin. As you rev up your car, it then makes your drive shaft spin, causing torque, and then it makes your rear wheels spin. But with electric vehicles, you're just pressing a pedal. You're immediately turning on the rear motor, instantly applying torque. So then you're getting instant G's instead of it having to like spool up for a second, if that makes any sense.
yeah. Wow,
But
we're only an hour into this. It's felt longer
I know it really has.
because we've jumped on so many different topics. Go on. You said but
Uh oh, but where how can we equate this and how can we add this back to what we were originally talking about?
space theory.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure time
Oh,
dilation has something to do about it.
yeah, that's what it was. Um how G's can affect time dilation.
Yeah,
If you
like
experience so many G's, time's going to follow suit with you.
oh my gosh, imagine what's it called? Hyperspeed in like the Star Trek, Star Wars movies,
Oh
right?
wait, yeah, that's right. Buzz Lightyear or Lightyear
Oh
talked
yeah,
about this with time
that's
dilation.
yeah. You should watch Lightyear.
Where
It's kind of interesting, a little bit. It's funny though.
do we want to spoil it?
Uh,
It
do
came
we?
out a while ago.
Yeah, if you
I think we
if
can
you
talk
haven't
about it.
watched it now, you're not gonna watch it later.
Yeah, if you are gonna watch it, pause right here, like right now.
Yeah.
Go watch it, come back, and then you'll understand what we're talking about. Anyway, or well, you know what? We'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4,
Just pause the
3,
video. Anyway, go on.
2, 1. Okay, boom, you're back. Thank you for watching Buzz Lightyear. Anyway,
Nice short video.
yeah, but in the movie, he takes his ship and he tries to use a warp drive to go around the sun, come back, right? But every single time he does that, was it 300 years passes?
Not 300. It was like 10
Was it?
or like 30 or some like big number like that.
It was like a decade passes at
Every
least, at
time
minimum.
he attempted to do that.
Yeah, every time he attempted to come back or attempted to go around their sun or their star,
Hmm.
he would end up, or time would have passed. But that's because he experienced so many G's. Gravity and velocity was being warped around him. And that star has a gravitational pull. That's how he was able to slingshot around. He was having velocity and gravity pulled around the ship, which meant that time was following with him, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah. Anyway, he came back. He slowed down, and what would happen is it would move like 30 years forward, and like just a day had passed by. Not even a day. It would be like 5 minutes passed by, and 30 years would pass by. You know,
Mhm.
for everybody else, it was crazy. And eventually, he shot so far in the future that like, oh, war was going on, blah blah blah, and there's the rest of the plot. But I mean, yeah, it kind of makes me think about like why is that not an issue in Star Wars and stuff like that when they shift into hyperdrive or hyperspeed, right? Like why does time not just go bazonkers?
It should, I
Yeah.
think, in theory. I think, do they ever talk about that? Um,
Mm.
why doesn't uh it doesn't time get affected in climate change?
Nice.
Affected in Star Trek. In
Oh.
Star Trek, the spaceships don't travel fast; they warp. Oh, Oh, it's like creating a shortcut between Earth and Alpha
Oh,
Centauri.
yeah, where okay, the representations where they grab a linear plane of space, the fabric of space-time, and they bend it over each other.
Yep, and they just move there. It's kind of like a teleport.
Yeah, it's like teleport, but it's which by the way makes me think about back to like four-dimensional space. If you've ever seen that visual representation, look up wormholes, right? Visual
Yep.
representation of wormhole, where they grab the fabric and they bend it over to create that little point, and they like puncture it with a pencil, right? Every like in these movies, and they're like that right there is the space between two wormholes, and I'll talk about black holes in a second, how it relates, but basically you just like is that not related to four dimensions, right? If you were to grab a two-dimensional plane, right, say that you are a two-dimensional guy living in a two-dimensional plane, you fold that plane over, nothing seems different, but all of a sudden there's this hole in between both of them where you can travel from one plane to the other, right? Well, it's the same plane but like one point of the plane to the other. That would be essentially teleportation. But would that not be the same thing as a 4D plane if you fold a 3D plane over, or like a 3D space
Yeah.
over? Would it not be that 4D point? Is a wormhole not a four-dimensional object? Like a representation of four dimensions? And it's all
Yeah.
theories as well. And
Oh, and that's because, and I mean, it makes sense through visual representations that we have of wormholes.
mhm,
For example, like it looks like you take two 2D flat planes, and it looks like it makes like a cylinder in the middle.
yeah.
But instead, take 3 dimensions, two 3-dimensional planes, put them through the middle, and connect them, and boom, you've got yourself a 4-dimensional plane.
It's kind of weird to me. Hold on. So
Ugh.
another theory of black holes. So black holes are kind of thought as like um uh wormholes, right? But there's a theory that if you're successfully able to make it through a black hole, you'd pop out on the other side of a white hole, which would be, I'm assuming, consisting of antimatter, right?
So it would
Because
be
it would
instead.
be all of the particles of a black hole, but opposite. And it shoots you out instead of sucking you in. Right? Just like that just like that leg in the space fabric table, right? It pushes you out, right? So to
Theoretically, that makes sense, but I
yeah.
think based off of our most recent theories of black holes, I think he would just die immediately.
Yeah, because you'd be compressed in such a tiny space of mass, right?
Yeah.
Um but that's kind of the theory of wormhole, of you get sucked in through a black hole and you end out on the other side of a white hole.
Because theoretically, yeah, with the law of opposite reactions, with
Nah.
every reaction, there's an opposite, but meh, that's.
We've never seen a white hole before, but we also have a really hard time like understanding and analyzing antimatter as well. And
But not only
antiparticles.
that, if wormholes can be from any point in the universe to another point in the infinite universe,
Mm-hmm.
it would be literally impossible to find where the other end of this black hole is because it
Yeah.
could be anywhere in the visible scheme of the universe.
Well, technically, if you're able, if we're ever able to find a white hole and we ever start to understand quantum mechanics, I feel like there would be an easy way if the theory of bending the plane over to create a point in which a wormhole is, right? The theory of bending space-time fabric, um, would we technically be able to calculate where the other end of a wormhole would be? I feel like we would, right? Because here is an even, here's like if we're able to find the spot of the fold on which space-time bends over, would we be able to calculate it?
Maybe.
Like here in one direction, if you go this amount of like space, would it be, it has to be in this place.
And oh, and here's how wormholes and black holes are different. Wormholes are supposed to be two ends connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can usually see through wormholes.
Oh, I actually just found
But
image of
with
it.
black holes, you can't see through them because they're literally deforming light. and so all that matter is just sucked into one center point. And not only that, but black holes can die. I think a lot of people don't know that because they
Yeah.
give off radiation. Because some of that traversed matter needs to go somewhere, and so it just spews out very little,
Oh
and it's
yeah,
Hawking
I'm just
radiation.
I'm looking at a new wormhole representation. Instead of the classic wormhole where it connects 2 points between space traffic, what it does is it's called Hawking radiation emitted by black holes. Is
Hmm.
where it just shoots out into a bunch of different random spaces in space time. The particles of the black hole,
Yeah,
the radiation. So it's just a bunch of different places. So yeah, you just essentially compress, die, and shoot out somewhere else. But like
basically.
not physically all of you. Now, if we were to shrink like Ant-Man, that might be a different story.
Yeah, but
Like
that's because he's the size of an atom at that point,
just less than that.
or whatever it is. He goes
Um,
into the quantum realm,
the quantum realm.
which is
Yeah.
where quarks and whatnot reside.
Now, if
But
you were
that's
able,
again getting into theoretical science.
yeah, if you
We're
were
all
to
talking about theoretical science
shut
tonight, but
up, no. Sorry. Um, if you were able to like shrink down to the quantum realm inside of a black hole, you might be able to shoot out somewhere else. Would that be a white hole? I don't know.
I don't know.
It might just be somewhere random in space.
That's we can chalk that up to. I don't know.
Mm. Oh, by the way, okay, so I was in the observatory in the Space and Rocket Center of Huntsville, Alabama, and they showed a diagram of everything we've ever observed from our Earth, and it's kind of interesting. So,
What?
observable universe, it's 3D space. The I don't know how else I'd be able to describe it without showing you. Um, where is it? Maybe I can find like a model, like an interactable model. Interactable. Interactive 3D map of the universe. Let's see. What is this? No, this is not it. This is just the universe in general. I'm trying to find. It's not. It's like a cone in every direction. Um, I'm trying to find where it's at. 3D map of the universe in great detail. I can't find it. I don't think I'd be able to find the exact diagram I'm thinking of because I don't think you can legally like take pictures in that observatory.
Yeah. They have like a no photography?
Yeah, probably Huntsville. Uh, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to find it. But basically, what it showed is there was a dot in the middle. That was us, right? And there would be. Oh, I found it. Okay. Yeah. So the observable universe of what we have today. I'm just going to be showing Google for a second. So if you look at the stream, there is essentially, and I think it's like east and like west, that kind of direction, where there is a bunch of different like, and the red is closer and the blue is farther. A bunch of different stars of like pictures we've seen, right? All throughout these telescopes and all of that we have studied, right? And they're all kind of in like cones and they're all different directions because you can only see so far, right? And to the north and the south, it's just nothing, right? We have no idea what that looks like, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? So we have all of the space, but I don't remember the reason of why we don't know, um, like what's north and south of us or east and west or whatever, but we only have these specific directions and we have no idea what's above us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, look at like all of this. Like
Well,
space is so interesting to look at. This is what kept on showing up. I don't know what this means.
that's like I'm pretty sure that's the full scope in which that we have.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to like zoom in, if it was an infinite picture, but if you could zoom in, that's what we've been able to see through the Milky Way galaxy only.
Yeah. Oh no, it's because the Milky Way galaxy gets so it is north and south because it's we have all of the space that we can see shooting out of here, right? We can
Mhm.
observe other universes in space, but through this little snippet of a plane where everything's all clustered and clouded through, we can't see through. I think that's what it
Oh, you
was.
want to know something I'm really jealous about?
What?
So, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but there was a supernova that happened. I think it was in the 1980s. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
But there was a supernova visible like through day and night for like a year or so. It was so cool.
Like 1900s.
It might have been 2000s, like early 2000s.
In the sky. No, this is none of it's finding it.
When
2003.
was maybe?
This is what I'm finding. Did it look like this? March 28th of 2003. Supernova in the sky.
Milky Way galaxy at the last was observed. Hold on, let me look at the stream. I don't know. Vsauce did a video on it.
Oh.
Or wait. Am I thinking of this wrong?
Vsauce did a video about the Andromeda galaxy colliding with ours.
It's either that or a supernova.
Anyway, Storm doesn't know what he's talking about. So
No, I know what I'm talking about.
Another fun fact.
Like an old cranky man.
I don't know if any of you have known about this, but in like billions of years, there's gonna be a galaxy called the Andromeda Galaxy that's gonna collide with ours, and it's first gonna pass us a little bit, but all the stars are gonna go whoosh and go everywhere, right? And then eventually they're gonna collide and create a supernova, but I don't think we're gonna be around to see it. But
You
I don't
don't
know
think?
if in billion of years we might be able to travel outside of our galaxy and not have to deal with it. I don't know. Anyway,
one day our sun will explode.
yeah, one day our sun will explode, probably before our galaxies collide. But I know before our sun explodes, we're gonna be able to see the galaxy in a very large way, like just in our sky, right? There's
Through
gonna
the
be
day
another,
and the night.
yeah, there's gonna be another galaxy just visible in the sky, which is kind of crazy to think about. If the Earth doesn't like rot and die in 100 years,
Let's hope not.
it's kind of that's gonna happen.
It will eventually.
From sky.
Oh, by the way, it snowed yesterday night.
Oh yeah.
Which is a little concerning because we have experienced every single type of seasonal weather in 1 week.
Oh, by the way, if the Andromeda Galaxy was brighter, this is what it would look like in our sky.
Yep.
And probably if we didn't have light pollution either. Look at that. That's how close it is. I mean, there's other pictures of it too. Ours less interesting as fuck. That's nice. But here's like a little diagram, and basically all it does is throughout day and night, there are billions of years, it'll just get bigger and bigger. I don't know why it's always in that specific like tilt.
Orientation.
Yeah, orientation.
Well, curvature of the Earth.
See the universe today. Yeah.
I want to move to a state, or I just want to go to a state with like the least amount of light pollution to go and see all the stars in the sky.
I'm just gonna go to the mountains of Colorado Springs. No, dude. I mean, hell, if you go to the woods of Indiana, you can do it. It's not that hard to do.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I want no light pollution.
Yeah, practically. If I go to my uncle's house, we've laid out in the yard and like just looked at all the stars. It's really nice to look at. What if we can see the night sky? Here's all the different galaxies. What? This is also Reddit, so it's not the most reliable source. Oh, these are all the different planets. So if like the light of the sun even refracting off of it. But if they were brighter, if they had like super bright stars, here's just what our moon would look like. I think that's Mars.
You know what's really unfortunate to like
Unless
think
that's
about?
Mars. What?
It's because light travels at a certain speed, right? The speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 7 minutes or 7 to 8 minutes for the light from the sun to reach our eyes.
Yeah.
But because of stars, they're so bright. You could look at a star, and because of the amount of time that light takes to get to us, that star could have been dead for billions of years now, and
Yeah.
we've just never known about it because of the light that's being emitted from that takes so goddamn long to get here.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate to think about, but
So, and if you think about it, if our sun were to disappear right now, we'd have like 7 to 11 minutes of life just continuing as normal, and then the sky would just go black.
Yep.
There'd be 7 minutes beforehand. That's crazy to think about. Where everything would go normal, and then I think in about like a week, the Earth would completely freeze over, something like that, or a year, or 10 years, or something like that. But we could live without the sun for a little bit, but we just basically freeze very fast.
just a little bit.
But yeah, sun heat and stuff like that.
The Earth is so cool.
Is it?
I love it here.
It's pretty
No.
hot.
What a what?
By the way, okay, so the scale of light is so interesting to think about because there's so many colors that we can't see. Hold on, I don't know what the exact terminology I'm thinking of. Scale. I forgot how to spell scale. Visible light. Because then there's like it goes from oh, yeah, here's just some random. Oh, am I allowed to show these pictures on stream? I just realized. What if these are copyrighted?
Whoops.
No.
Uh-oh.
I didn't think about that. Shit. Well, have we done this before? I don't think so. I think this is the first time we've ever done this.
I don't know.
You're gonna have a lot of blurring to do. Just like blur the entire screen. But
I think it'll be fine up until we get monetized, and then if we just like can't, it'll tell us.
Yeah.
Maybe
if we get flagged for it.
That is a future us problem.
Anyway, so it's waves of it's the amount of waves we can see, right? And I'm gonna describe this scale now because actually I'll draw it instead for you for the visual representation's sake. I'm gonna do it with my mouse because I unplugged my mouse pad or my drawing tablet because my cat was playing with the cord. Anyway, we're gonna draw everything from now on.
I mean, if you want an example, like we can't see like X-rays, like that does not have a color.
Yeah. So
or well, technically it does, but it's so far off of the visible light spectrum of our eyes and overall compensation of what we see as light, just doesn't have a color.
Okay, this is so shitty. It's
what color is that, Zenith?
And then it's getting longer and longer, and eventually the waves are like this. Anyway, there's our snippet of like all of the colors, right? These are the amount of like radio waves we are able to see, and it's around I don't know, 10 to the 0th power, so like a certain amount of hertz, right? Anyway, so we have gamma rays. This is how it's actually like diagrammed. It says POW. It says POW right here. This is gamma rays. Then we have our X-rays, right? And here's skeleton. Here's our hips.
I'm loving the visual. Oh my god, he needs to get his hips checked out.
We have ultraviolet, right? And then we have light. Here's our different colors. Nice colors.
That sun seems a little
I don't know if
explosive.
it's a sun or not. I'm gonna be honest. Here's our fire. Here's infrared. Then we have um microwaves.
Something tells me I don't want to use that microwave.
Wait,
It's got a
here's
giant gaping hole in the side of it.
It's fine.
It's fine.
There's and then we have microwaves, and then we have our radio waves. I don't remember what a radio.
There you go. You got FM and AM.
Here's and then it has this like thing in the middle, and then it's like speaker stuff. Wait, hold on. That's its speaker, and then it has its antenna.
Yeah.
Radio waves. And all of this from here to here is visible light, and it ranges from I'm not gonna grab all the colors of the color wheel, I'm sorry.
What?
Wait,
Buzzkill.
I'm gonna see if there is a gradient that I can use. I'm not familiar with this program, I'm gonna be completely honest. There's not a rainbow gradient? How sad. Oops. Anyway, it ranges from 7 I hate using math. 7 times 10 to the 14th power hertz. And this is like ultraviolet, like purple, right? Not ultraviolet, it's just like a purple. And so this is the more compact radio waves, right? And we'll have another diagram of radio waves. So it goes from purple over here all the way to red. And then it goes from 7 times 10 to the 14th hertz to 4 times 10 to the 14th hertz. You get the point. I just said it out loud. You're not going to be able to read it now, but it's fine. There's not even.
Wait, I think you
on
got
these
them.
hertz.
I think you got them mixed.
No, I'm looking at a graph right now.
Oh, you're on the top of the scale. Never mind.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is from condensed to less condensed, and here that's our waves of visible light.
I can understand why we only have one viewer.
From red to like bluish purple. Look at that. Anyway, then it goes from infrared to microwaves to radio waves. So it goes. I'm not gonna draw this out. 10 to the 12th hertz, 10 to the 10th, 10 to the 8th, 10 to the 6th, 10 to the 4th, and the least amount of hertz low frequency on here is 10 to the 2nd. But around 10 to the 4th, that's our sound waves, right? And the higher frequency is 10 to the 24th power. That's gamma rays. Do you know what gamma rays are?
God, extreme radioactive rays. Why?
Gamma radiation, gamma rays. I just don't know. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, I thought you meant like, were you asking me if I knew?
No, I was asking you because I didn't know.
Oh, I mean, I took a class over it, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna Google it. What are
Have
gamma
fun
rays?
editing this podcast.
I'm just gonna get rid of what we did at the beginning, like the first 15 minutes, and keep the rest.
No, don't do that.
Yep.
No.
No. You
Funny story.
can't.
Okay, so there's this YouTuber named Mini Battle Lop. Funny name. And he does YouTube comments or comment YouTube videos about Bone Lap, right? And he went from ranking about 100 views to 100,000 views in a day from a video saying something along the lines of like, "Can I beat Bone Lab gripless?" Right? And now big YouTuber, lots of kids in his server. Anyway, I was in server VC, and the man was there, and where was it going with it? There was a guy in the chat named Mason FX. and I called him El Mason, of course, because he reminded me of Mason Livingston just because of his name. And he was like some other guy in there named Blue who wanted Mini Bottle Ops feet pics for some reason. Um, he sounded like Squidward, and he's like, "Why you sound like Squidward, bro?" And I was like, "Squilly, I'm Fancy Pants from band class." And then he said, "Whoa, why'd you nail that impression?" I was like, "I don't know, I do voice impressions for fun." He's like, "Why do I keep meeting extremely talented people?" And then I looked at him and I said, "I don't think playing VR chat and screwing around is an extreme talent. I'm gonna be honest." um,
What do you mean?
it was kind of funny to me. Um, I met someone in there that likes Undertale that isn't a child, and it just kind of blew my mind.
That is unreal.
He created JoJo Sense.
That is very real.
Yeah. Anyway, I know this is probably gonna be a shorter podcast because me and Storm are children, and we have no idea what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, we've been kind of like, some of this is like structured pulling out of our asses.
Yeah.
If I could phrase it
we've learned
anyway.
about, like on YouTube that we've just consumed, we just kind of spilled out and you know.
This is all the info that we've gone, whoa,
Yeah.
that's neato.
Anyway, I'm gonna end this off, and you can do your outro, right?
I was about to say.
But I'm gonna beforehand. I want to tell you guys my life story.
All right, wake me up when we're over.
Here is my like end goal of life. Here's my aspirations. I'm gonna spill them all out right here. Okay. So I, for one, right, and I tell this story a lot. I am, I'm in a fortunate situation, right? Is how I describe it, and I try not to boast about it, right? Look how fortunate I am. But anyway, so
He's a stereotypical white boy.
yeah, currently right now I'm living in Indiana, right? And my parents, I had moved when I was 7 from Colorado to Indiana, right? And the standing of living in Colorado is much higher than Indiana, right? I swear this is relative. This has a conclusion at the end of it, right? Live on the weekend, yeah, we're live every Saturday. We told you about this a couple times, you idiot. Anyway, so
just to clarify, we know this person, okay? We're not just dogging on some random person in our chat. Hi, Blue.
We went from typical, even maybe what is it? Medium class to it was like lower middle class. That's what it's called in Colorado to basically looking rich in Indiana because it's literally next to the poorest state in the entire country, right? Like I don't know. This is like close to the poorest state in like the entire US, right? So we look rich to everybody else. So money's not necessarily a concern, right? So that, and also I have 2 parents that are married. I'm already doing better than 60% of America with that fact alone, right? Because it's just
damn throwing shade.
I mean, it's a fact that 50% of people who marry get divorced, right? So I'm already doing better than most of America just in that aspect, right? So I'd say I'm in a very fortunate situation, and I happen to be a lighter skin tone. So there comes some social aspects with that as well.
Mine's
anyway. No, I'm just fucking with you. But I'd say that I live in a pretty fortunate situation, and I've also grown up with I'd say
Tamarath is killing all of our viewers.
I had matured pretty fast for my age, right? And I'm also, not to brag, but I'm also pretty intelligent, right? And not just into different kinds of aspects, right? But I'm book smart, right? Is what I'm trying to say. And with that comes a lot of ease of access to a lot of skills. School isn't an issue, right? Money isn't an issue. I'm very fortunate in all the situations, right? And what I'm trying to say is I've had that moment of contemplation of my life. I'm like, what do I want to do with my life? And I think the biggest thing I could do with my life is go to space. I think that'd be pretty cool, right? Just, that childhood dream that I thought of when I was younger. I always told my grandpa, I was like, I want to go to Mars. And then he's like, yeah, he's like, my grandson's going to go to Mars. And then I walked up to him one day and then I said, I heard that when you go to space, sometimes you don't come back. I don't want to go to Mars anymore. But then I just kind of like realized one day, I was like, screw it, whatever, right? So
You'll live once.
I'm gonna go to the Air Force Academy. I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna join the Space Force, right? And I'm gonna go to space. So I'm gonna go up into space with these people who've dedicated like 60 years of their lives to this shit, right? Old, very political, serious men, and I'm just gonna be like 30 years old, just kind of like, turning around, spinning in space, going, space. And I'm just going to be like, kind of flying around in the ship, like enjoying myself, right? And
So welcome back to the Midnight Milk Podcast. I'm here in the spacecraft going to Mars.
Yeah. And
It's really cold.
And I'm going to be piloting that shit, and I'm going to lead my men to this random red planet for like research purposes and science stuff. And we're gonna land on that planet, right? The Mars, yeah. We're gonna land on that planet, right? The spaceship's gonna come down with this like gas and stuff. Just go, right? Soft landing. I'm like, successful landing, guys. And the door's gonna open. The little like the platform comes out like fucking Darth Vader ship, right? And I'm gonna step my really bulky restrictive spacesuit out that door, and I'm gonna set foot. Dust is gonna settle everywhere, right? And then I'm gonna pull my little intercom up to my face. I'm gonna go, space, and then that'll be the first word ever said on Mars. That's my plan. That's my life goal.
And welcome back to the Midnight Milk Podcast. We've got a bit of a special for you today. You guys remember that thing I said like 40 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah, I did
Space.
it. So, because I want to be that one kid where I'm going to set my goal, I'm gonna do the goal, and then the old people are going to be like, that kid was talking about going to space, and he made it to space. What an inspirational guy. For the stupidest reasons ever. Like, my main drive of going to space is because I want to say something stupid on Mars, because I want that to be in the history books of, like, the first person who went to Mars said, space, and that is, big inspiration. Really swept the feet of everybody else on Earth. Those losers,
Those losers.
Thousands of, like, planets away. Yeah, and then I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna go to Colorado Springs and just be on my porch and crack open an ice cold beer, and then realize I'm gonna be alone for the rest of my life. And see,
Because you devoted over half of it to trying to go to space.
Half of it for a funny joke. Yeah, just like, is that not the most like dedicated bit you've ever heard of? Like, even more dedicated to the channel dad. Like, that shit's crazy.
You can definitely see a very stark difference in the way me and Zenith want to live. I want to settle down after I've got my I've got my successful trade or job in automotive. Maybe get a diesel mechanic trade and a normal gas combustion engine trade. Start my own business. Start my own business. I want to have 2 kids, maybe just 1. Who knows? Get a nice wife, marry, settle down, raise these kids, die. I want to go to Mars and say, space, and then come back home and do nothing.
Maybe teach people. I might become a teacher.
I don't know, maybe do something.
This is my life goal. If it doesn't work out, then, well, I've already, like, if the requirements to go to space are pretty high. So, even if it doesn't work out, I'm be doing some pretty big things. GPA gonna be off the charts, right? And in order to go to the Air Force Academy, you need big things. So if I go, I won't go to space anymore, you know, Harvard would be like, hey, look, I'm listening. So, and then no, you know what? After Mars, fuck it. I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna land. I'm gonna sit down for like 3 years, and I'm gonna go back into space, right? And then what my plan is I'm gonna fly to the sun. I'm gonna be the first person to set foot on sun, right? I'm gonna land down. I'm gonna set foot on the yellow big planet, and I'm gonna grab those millions of degrees and be the smartest man in the universe.
Way to go to drag out like 20 minutes.
And then
Anyway,
I'm
with
the
Zenith on
smartest
his
man.
little rant here.
I'm the smartest man in the universe. And I'm gonna have my millions of degrees. I'm gonna grab those and I'm gonna go home and just be absolute gigabrain.
Anyway, with Zenith's life story out of the way and what he wants to do, and from since he was little to when he wants to die,
Yeah.
and me just wanting to start a business, maybe have a kid or two.
That's lame. Why would you want to do that?
Xander, I called you Xander. I meant Zenith. We very clearly have two different lifestyles here.
But like, you only have so many years to live. Why don't you want to do something cool with it?
That's what I do deem as cool.
Is it? I want
Yeah?
build cars. I want to make them go vroom vroom.
Yeah,
That sounds so boring.
Zenith, your bit sounds more interesting.
Yeah. You know,
Business is cool.
no, making
Zenith,
money.
I want to ruin this economy
Look,
my way.
No, everyone's made money before, right? Not everyone set foot on Mars.
Anyway, I would like to thank everyone that has
I'm
showed
right,
up on the
you're
Twitch
wrong.
stream, which is not very many people, but that's okay. And to all the people that are going to be, Blue Mist and like 3 other people. But thank you as always for coming by and just listening to us ramble about space and pulling things out of our ass
Yeah,
and talking like we know what everything is when we really don't.
we're just kids.
We're just kids. But I would like to thank you all again for showing up. If you would like, you can go down into the description if you're on YouTube and click onto Twitch and watch us live ramble on for literally almost 2 hours. Or if you're on the Twitch right now, you can go down and find the YouTube link.
Or just
And-
like look it up.
Or just look it up. I love you too, Blue. But
I don't know.
and if you're on either platform, either Twitch or YouTube, there will be one link to the Discord channel. We highly advise that you go there and join it. You'll be able to engage with the community, and you'll also be able to see when we go live. And
Yeah, so smash that subscribe button, click the notification
smash
bell,
that subscribe button.
watch
Smash that like
watch
button.
podcasts.
Turn on the bell notification so that way you see every time we
All right,
post.
Storm, say the quote.
But we are going to go fill our fridges full of the longest expiration dates of milk, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya
On next times.
on the Midnight Milk Podcast.
There you go.
And join us on
No.
And thank you for joining us on tonight's Midnight Milk Run.
There you go. You did it.
See ya.
Bye bye.